Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the January 20th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting. If we could all stand for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For roll call, all anticipated commissioners and staff are here. Commissioner Beitler, is he remote or not in attendance? Absent. Absent. So Commissioner Ronald R. Beitler is absent tonight. Item number 4, agenda modifications. Are there any agenda modifications? Seeing none. Announcements and presentations. There was an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss litigation and land acquisition. Number 6, hearings and approvals. 6.1, conditional use hearing for Dad Pizza. Okay, I hereby temporarily adjourn this meeting of the Lower Mukunji Township Board of Commissioners for the purpose of conducting a conditional use hearing on the application of Dad Pizza Mukunji, Inc. pursuant to section 27-1003 of the Township Zoning Code to permit for a craft brewery at the property located at 1091 Mill Creek Road, Suite 119, Allentown, Pennsylvania. The property is located in the C Commercial Zoning District. I would like to note the presence of a court stenographer who will commence recording a transcript of this hearing. I am now turning over conduct of the hearing to our solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening and welcome to the conditional use hearing in the Lower Mukunji Township Board of Commissioners. Sorry. My name is David Broman, and I'm the solicitor of the Board of Commissioners. The members of the board that are here tonight with us are President Brian Higgins, Vice President Richard Ward, members Maury Robert and Brian Schumacher. Also present, as indicated by our president, is a court stenographer. She will be recording everything that happens tonight, and you'll be entitled to review it if you're so inclined to order a transcript. We're not expecting to. Is anyone here for this application, Dad's Pizza, other than the applicant? Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Hartman. Could we? Good morning. I'm sorry. Good evening, Mr. Hartman. You're on mute. Could you kindly take yourself off mute? Thank you.
I'm sorry, that I have nothing to say. That was a mistake here. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think Mr. Berger's representing the applicant. So Mr. Why don't you identify yourself for the board and of course, and for the audience and proceed.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dave Berger. I am an attorney at Morris McLaughlin, and I represent the applicant, Dad Pizza Mukunji, which is also trading as Mill Creek Pizza. This is a request for a conditional use approval to operate the craft brewery at their property at 1091 Mill Creek Road, Suite 119 in Allentown. The property is, as previously stated by Commissioner Higgins, is located in the C Commercial District. The applicant currently operates an existing pizzeria at the premises located in the shopping center. It's the Walmart Shopping Center. I would like to specifically, should they be permitted to operate the craft brewery out of the establishment, they would actually also be the only commercial tenant, which also is the sale of alcohol from the premise. So as a part of the application, I have a few exhibits. I've handed the packet up to every member of the board, and I believe we have online. The first exhibit is an amendment to the existing lease agreement between the landlord and Dad Pizza Mukunji. What this lease amendment does is achieves the landlord's consent to operate the craft brewery and sell alcohol out of the premises. So their use should be conditionally approved by the members of the board tonight, or is approved by the landlord. The landlord has signed off on the application. Turning to Exhibit 2, it's an aerial view of the property in the shopping center. You will see that and for anyone who's been to the Walmart in Lower Mukunji Township, it's a significantly large shopping center with adequate parking. There's access to the shopping center via Mill Creek Road, both by Lower Mukunji Road and Hamilton Boulevard. Parking at the property is more than adequate. The current employees for the premises park in the parking lot, as well as customers. There is no lease restriction by the landlord that would restrict the use of any parking, meaning they don't lease a certain number of spots. We're not going to need any additional spaces. The full use of the parking lot is available to both my clients or the applicant's customers and employees. Exhibit A3 just merely shows the existing entrance to the property and the trade name for the business. That is not planning on changing. Should the conditional use be granted, their plan is to offer craft beers to supplement their existing food offerings. Specifically, the Pennsylvania Control Board allows a licensed brewery to sell Pennsylvania beer, wine, and spirits for on-premise consumption only, while they are also allowed to sell their types of beers, which we're planning on doing 5 general types: IPAs, pale ales, saisons, and stouts for on-premise consumption. But for off-premise consumption, meaning takeout, they are only allowed to sell their types of products. So meaning you can't go there, buy Yingling and take it out along with the pizza you're getting for takeout. You can only take a growler of their specific beer. With regards to interior dining, if you turn to, actually, I apologize. I guess, so I'm going to show you then, turn to Exhibit 8.4. This is actually.
Just one moment. Is that the photo you want to show the board, or
That
is?
is going to be Exhibit 8.4, yes, it's what I'm turning to now. Yes, thank you. So Exhibit 8.4 represents what my client will be using to manufacture her beer. So if you notice, it is no larger than maybe 2 coffee pots on top of each other. What the Pennsylvania Control Board also allows for a brewery applicant to do is brew a small amount of beer on premise, but contract with a third party to brew the majority of their products off site. That is the plan for the applicant. So the applicant's going to do very minimal manufacturing at the premise. In fact, and you'll see when we go to a next exhibit, their manufacturing brewery area is really only a 6-foot by 13-foot area. Most of the products will be brewed off site, which will alleviate any concerns with noise, smell, things of that nature, which are normal concerns for breweries. With regards to the plan, so it's posted. This is actually the plan that is only to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. So you'll see a significant area, 20-foot by 40-foot is for serving. There is a small brewery area across the hallway that you will see is the 16 by 3 area. Most of the other areas are for serving. There is 5 tables and a bar area for the limited on-site serving. I just want to point out for members of the board, this plan has already been submitted, reviewed, and actually approved and investigated by the Liquor Control Board. So this is what, if the conditional use is granted, has already more or less been approved and would ultimately be approved by the Liquor Control Board. With regards to the applicant's operation, their current hours are Tuesday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., while the liquor code allows breweries to be open for until I believe it's midnight. That is not the intended use of the applicant. Again, the applicant intends to keep existing hours of operation because, again, what the whole point of this use is just to add the sale of the beer and the spirits to their existing use. With regards to the operation at the premises, My client currently has employed about 15 to 20 employees at any time. All of the employees who are going to be handling alcohol, meaning the service and the sales, will have to be 18 and over and ramp certified. So the ramp guidelines require that they be 18.
What does RAMP stand for?
RAMP is Responsible Alcohol Management Program. So all of the employees have to go be certified, be taught how to kind of identify a visibly intoxicated person, how to identify somebody, a minor person. So say, for example, anyone who comes to purchase alcohol by the RAMP guidelines, you're required to ID anyone who looks 35 and younger. So the applicant intends to follow those guidelines. So anyone who looks 35 and younger is going to have to get ID'd before they're able to purchase alcohol. Also, so all of these employees would have to be 18 and older. So no employee under 18 would be able to handle alcohol and conduct a sale of the alcohol. And then it's also important to point out that should this be approved and should the area be licensed, liquor control enforcement does go around fairly often and do compliance checks. So they will send in undercover agents who are under 21 and have them attempt to buy alcohol. Should a sale occur to something like that, a licensee would face significant fines and penalties and could ultimately lead to a license being revoked, which is why it's very important for a licensed applicant to make sure that they don't sell alcohol to minors. In general, it's a very minor use. It's a very minor addition to what she's already offering. She's really just looking to offer flights of beer along with a slice of pizza. Nothing goes better than pizza and beer. So honestly, I am here. I can certainly answer any alcohol related questions, use questions. My client is here as well, should members of the board have any questions.
So let's, for formalities, please, can we have the witness, your applicant, sworn?
Sure.
Thank you. Could you kindly go up to the podium, ma'am? Do you swear and affirm that everything your lawyer just said, David Berger, in the offer of proof is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Members of the board, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Look like it.
Okay, hearing none. David, could you just quickly identify your exhibits for the record?
I'm sorry.
Could you just quickly identify your exhibits so they're clear in the record?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
So Exhibit A1 is relevant portions of the lease agreement between the landlord and Dad Pizza Mukunji, Inc., doing business as Mill Creek Pizza. Exhibit A2 is the overhead of the subject property. Exhibit A3 is the entrance to the subject property. Exhibit A4 is a photo of the I want to say the brewing material that the applicant will utilize. Exhibit A5 is a diagram of the proposed licensed premise and the proposed operation of the property. And I would like to move them all into evidence.
Any objections? They're accepted into evidence. I'd like to identify the township exhibits this time. Township Exhibit 1, public notice of tonight's hearing. Township Exhibit 2, certification of mailing by Carl Best dated January 7 and January 14. Township 3, certification of property posting by Nate Jones, Director of Community Development, and Vince Tranguch, Deputy Director of Community Development, dated January 7, 2022. Township 4, conditional use application filed by DAD dated August 11, 2021. Township 5, review memorandum, Carl Best, dated November 22, 2021. Township Exhibit 6, review memorandum prepared by Nate Jones, Director of Community Development, dated September 29, 2021. Township 7, and the last exhibit. Planning Commission recommendation, dated December 17th, 2021. One more time. Any questions for the applicant?
None.
I move my exhibits. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. I think that concludes your testimony, or do you have another witness?
Nope, concludes my testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Renee, this is Dad's Pizza, and we're going to hold this over for a vote because it was a public notice issue. Could you explain that, please?
Sure. The MPC requires that notice is sent out to residents that are within 500 feet. And the notice has to be sent out anywhere between 1 week and 1 month. It was noticed after that 1 week timeframe that we missed 1 page of people to send out. So we resent out to the entire list. And that was sent out on January 14th.
So basically, in an abundance of caution, we wanted to make sure we got the notice out again. So I'm going to suggest that we keep the record open, just for the formality of making sure there's no one else out there that didn't get notice that might object. I'm not expecting that to happen. So we're going to keep the record open tonight because of that public notice. It has been adequately noticed, and the board will be in a position to vote at its next meeting, not at the workshop meeting, but at its first February meeting. Thank you. Records closed for tonight, but we're keeping it open just in case anyone comes to the February meeting. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes this hearing. We have one more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Solicitor Berman. Okay, moving on. Hearings and approval 6.2, conditional use hearing for NH Mukunji Hospital. The next conditional use hearing is on the application of NH Mukunji PA-1-UT LLC. Applicant is seeking pursuant to section 27-1003 of the Township Zoning Code authorization to construct, own, and operate a neighborhood hospital and medical office building at the property located at 3369 PA Route 100, Mukunji, Pennsylvania. The property is located in the C Commercial Zoning District. I would like to note the presence of a court stenographer who will commence recording a transcript of this hearing. I am now turning over conduct of the hearing to our solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since I have already identified who's on the dais for tonight, I will not have to do that again. Thank you. As noted by President Higgins, this is the conditional use hearing for NH Mukunji PA-1-U T, LLC. Conditional use is a use permitted by right in the zoning code. Chapter 27. The applicant meets the objective criteria of the zoning ordinance. The applicant is legally entitled to a conditional use. The Board of Commissioners have the right to vote on and render a decision on a conditional use application, and the board may impose reasonable conditions. Is there any member of the public in the audience or online present for this application? I ask that question because there's two ways to participate in a proceeding. One is to become officially a party. And you gain as a party all the rights that Peter Lair has as the attorney for the applicant, meaning you have the ability to cross-examine witnesses. You have the ability to put on your own evidence. You have the ability to get a copy of the decision, and you have the ability to appeal the decision. The second way to cooperate tonight is public comment. And public comment is just that. It's not evidence. It's not testimony. It's public comment. But rest assured, public comment is taken into consideration by this board in its deliberations over these cases. So I would ask at this time, sir and ladies, do you wish to become parties, or do you simply wish to provide public comment? Thank you so much. Okay. And I understand there's one person online that raised their hand. Does that person desire to be a party, as I've explained it, or simply to provide public comment? Mr. Hartman, you're on mute again.
Just public comment.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe the applicant is represented by Peter Lair tonight. Peter, I turn it over to you. Kindly introduce your witnesses, simply for purposes of the board. And I think Peter might be prepared to provide an offer of proof. I've asked both of his witnesses, they can be sworn right now. And then at the conclusion, and it's up to Peter how he does this, I would just ask that one or both witnesses affirm the testimony. So that'll be officially on the record as sworn testimony. And then the board will have the opportunity to ask either of you questions. Okay? Peter.
Certainly. Thank you. My name is Peter Lair. I'm with the law firm of Norris McLaughlin. I represent the applicant tonight. I'm here today with, immediately to my right, Michael Lardy of Land Corps Engineering, project manager for this project. And next to him is Denise Valentes Stark, the senior project manager. We are here tonight as part of an infill project that certainly we are very excited about, which would involve the redevelopment of the former Weiss supermarket site on Route 100. The existing structure, the supermarket, is currently on a single lot, and the plan, if we meet with the board's approval, would be to demolish that building and subdivide the lot and construct a roughly 22 or 23,000 square foot single story neighborhood hospital. And I'll talk a little bit about what a neighborhood hospital is in a moment, as well as approximately 10,000 square foot medical office building. In addition to those two structures, there's going to be obviously parking areas, compliant lighting, use of existing stormwater facilities, and reduction in the stormwater discharge, which I think Mike can talk generally about, including street trees, a buffer to the adjoining residential area to the north, as well as landscaping. While we are intending to subdivide, and that's not the purpose of tonight's meeting, this is just a conditional use on the hospital portion, we want to make sure that you're aware that the goal is to continue to have a coordinated development of the site, meaning that we're going to continue and preserve the cross-access easements that you see there to the adjoining properties, one of which is in actually the borough, immediately as I'm looking at it to the right, which I believe is south, and then to the north is another commercial development. But you can see that we have cross-access points that will be preserved. At this point, I'm not at liberty to discuss the end user of the project. However, it will be intended as a neighborhood hospital with the primary goal of increasing access to healthcare for the residents of the township. With respect to this neighborhood hospital, I use the term neighborhood because it is intended to primarily serve the residents of Lower Mukunji Township in the borough of Mukunji. It will be a state licensed Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services accredited acute care hospital. And that means that it's going to be offering emergency care as well as inpatient healthcare services. This will result in faster and more convenient access for residents. I think the best way, I think, to describe it would be neighborhood in the sense that it's probably the minimum in terms of scope of services offered to qualify as a hospital, meaning this is not the first phase of a multi-phase large hospital with multiple services. This is really intended to be serving primary emergency care needs of the surrounding community. It's going to be opened on a 24/7 basis, 365, as any licensed hospital would be in the state. In terms of what will be located within that hospital, there will be 10 inpatient beds with 11 emergency exam rooms. And again, that number is intentional to qualify as a hospital. That would be the minimum number of rooms and spaces that we would need in order to do so. The average stay at this hospital would be between 2 to 5 days. So again, this is not intended to be some form of long-term care or intermediate care facility. People are going to go there for emergency services or inpatient services and they're going to be discharged as quickly as medically necessary, but they're not going to be there for an extended period of time. In terms of services that are going to be offered, we are talking about episodic acute emergency care. There is going to be an in-house laboratory to do diagnostic testing. There will likely be an imaging component to that for those who need, for example, CT or X-ray, and pharmacy services as well as would any licensed hospital have that. In addition, there will be inpatient care, meaning people would be coming in, staying overnight. The emergency room is going to be equipped to stabilize all emergencies and treat almost all serious medical emergencies. And that will obviously be a benefit, at least in our view, in terms of people who need emergency care quickly. They will be able to have that at this proposed facility. The emergency room is going to be staffed by board certified or board eligible emergency physicians, as well as experienced emergency trained registered nurses. So that's the hospital. The second component of this is a medical office building. The intent there would be that it would be occupied by physicians with a variety of specialties. A medical office building is permitted by right, my understanding, in the C commercial district. And these obviously complementary to the hospital. People would be going there and being seen on an outpatient basis in physician offices with, as I said, a variety of specialties. There may be also ancillary medical services rendered in that medical office building, such as diagnostic services, again, people who would be going in there for example, X-ray or CT on an outpatient basis. I just wanted to mention briefly before I sort of start to introduce some exhibits here, but we did have a sketch plan review in front of the Planning Commission. As a result of that, we actually held a community outreach session at West Coastville Community Center on December 1st. We had about 11 residents from the surrounding area attend. We received a lot of good input. I believe some of the people here rendering public comment may want to mention that. During that session, we heard and tried to reflect in really the land development portion of the submission, not so much the conditional use, but some of the concerns. Number one was the buffer between this operation and the adjoining residential, keeping in mind, obviously, that we're replacing a supermarket use and the orientation of the buildings, as well as the change in the use would likely reduce things such as noise, traffic, things such as that. But we recognize that, particularly, I believe that there's been some natural disease that's taken out some of that vegetation buffer to the north there. I think it's the evergreen trees that may have been affected. So we're going to focus on replenishing that buffer, making sure that it exists between our location and the adjoining area.
Peter, if I may, for just 1 second, thank you. As you know, we have a new board member, and I'm not sure he's been following as closely the applications as we have. But suffice it to say, what Peter is saying is that there's a dual application process that Be patient for a couple seconds and hopefully we get our Zoom back. Back on the record.
Are the people in the back having any issues hearing Attorney Lear?
And can you guys? As well? Okay, yeah, I'm trying to speak into the microphone, recognizing that not only do you have to hear me, but the people that are participating remotely would need to do that. I'll try to lean over as much as I can. But I think we were concluding with the noise, some concerns related to the noise, particularly the facilities that would be on the roof. As we'll talk about in a moment, there will be housing for those. And again, we would not anticipate that would generate a great deal of noise. So with that opening, we do have a series of exhibits. As Solicitor Bruman alluded to, we have submitted an offer of proof, which we have labeled Exhibit A1. I'm not going to talk about that now, but I believe at the conclusion, we will have the witnesses swear that would be their testimony. I've tried to cover the relevant details related to the hospital use, which may have been duplicative of what's in the offer of proof, but I think that gives a general overview. But what we're looking at here, I believe, is our second exhibit labeled Exhibit A2, which is the existing site. And I'm just going to ask Mike to perhaps just describe briefly what we're looking at here.
Sure. I'm sorry. If
Yes.
Here's what I'd like to do if we could. Would you kindly identify yourself and kind of what you do for a living and what you're involved with this project, and similarly for you, so that the board knows exactly what your relationship is to the application and your involvement with respect to the project. Thank you.
My name is Denise Valenta Stark. I'm Senior Project Manager for Embry Development Group as the applicant.
My name is Michael Lardy, Project Manager with Landcore Engineering Consultants, representing the applicant for this application.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I?
Let me just ask, just so we get it on the record. Do you affirm all of the testimony, the offer of proof as Peter indicated?
Yes.
And you, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
Does any member of the board have any question? Well, I'm sorry, Peter, did you finish your presentation or you want to keep?
Oh, I was going to have him go through the exhibits, but we can
Okay,
start with
that's
the offer
fine.
of proof. Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. So Mike, we're looking at the existing aerial. So can you just talk about what we're looking at here?
Sure. I suspect most people in the room are familiar with the existing Weiss at 3369 PA 100. Here's a 55,000 or 50,500 square foot building, more or less. Setback, excuse me, I lost my spot there. Sorry, setback about 60 feet from the residences in the rear, large parking lot in the east. As Peter mentioned very clearly in his presentation, we are straddling the property line of the borough of Mukunji with some stormwater basins that are existing today. And as you'll see in another exhibit, they will be preserved, as will all of the access points, and primarily the access to Route 100 will remain.
So I'll ask Renee if she can go to the next, which is Exhibit A3, which is the site aerial for the proposed use. And Mike, while that's loading up here, is this a document that you're familiar with?
Yes.
Did you prepare it or assist in preparing it?
Excuse me?
Did you-
Personally, yes. This was
And-
prepared by Landcore Engineering Consultants.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of what the proposed use would look like?
Yes,
Okay, so why don't you just sort of walk us through generally what's shown there?
sure. A big part of this project initially, we wanted to clean up the access to the main drive aisle coming into PA 100. Presently all those Weiss parking aisles kind of dump out onto that main artery accessing the site. So we wanted to close that off. clean up some of the access issues. Right now, there's even backup parking right on that main drive aisle near the existing stormwater basin on the bottom. So our initial concern was getting that entry, improving the safety of that entryway. The site is essentially could be divided north and south with the medical office building to the north and the subject of this hearing, the hospital to the south. I just want to point out some of the features of that hospital on the site. The loading is located to plan left. You can see a loading zone there in the more discrete portion of the property. Along the front, the PA 100 frontage, that's where the ambulance drop-off is in that kind of a maroon colored hatch where the cursor is, which will serve the use of the hospital, but also as an added benefit of, providing additional screening. The ambulance being there on the front allows the whole building to, screen the rest of the property and everything behind it from an ambulance, which is a benefit for the use and for the property. We have also a drop-off on the page right side of that building for a patient next to the parking lot on the right side of that hospital. Everything was designed with a view to getting the ambulances in and out with ease, as well as obviously the patrons of the neighborhood hospital. And we are, as part of the land development process, which is underway, working closely with the township professionals to refine this to make sure that it's optimally designed, it's safe as possible, and provides a suitable amount of parking, being conscientious of some of the flooding and stormwater concerns that were made very clear to the applicant from long before even the sketch plan application. When we met informally, we were alerted that that would be a big concern. So we took that very seriously. As you can see, we generously landscaped the entire property. Compared to the Weiss, if you were to cycle back and forth between the two, I'm not asking you to do that, but you would see that there's a significant reduction in the amount of impervious coverage here and an introduction of a new basin, which will improve the stormwater situation coming out of this site. Turning our attention to the north half of the site, the medical office building, relatively self-explanatory, a patient drop-off on the left side of that building right there. The primary parking lot for the medical office building to the left. The parking lots are interconnected, and a lot of this, the patrons of one building may very well just walk across the street and use the other one. So the cross-access parking will make good sense in this application, since a lot of the patrons will go back and forth between the hospitals, perhaps their MRI center and their doctor at the MOB. We've took a close look at the buffer. We worked with the buffering requirements to make sure that we were sensitive to the residences behind us. We looked at the building setback line. We note that the Weiss was 65 feet away from that residential property line, and we wanted to improve that situation. So we pulled that building back to almost twice that, roughly speaking, getting that as far away from that as we could. The site was limited by, there's an existing water main bisecting the site. You can kind of see a faint white line cutting the bottom left corner of that medical office building that traverses the site. It kind of pinned down our options as far as where to put that building, because there's no way, we have to work within the infrastructure that's in place, but we feel we've done so in a responsible way, in a way that's compliant. And we continue to work with township professionals to make it even better.
And Renee, if we can look at the last exhibit, which is marked A4, which has a series of renderings giving an architectural view of what the general buildings would look like.
Peter, just for the record, just identify the document, how many pages it is.
Sure. It's exhibit A4. It's architectural renderings is what we've classified it, the proposed neighborhood hospital and medical office building. It's actually a series of, I think, three.
It's a three-page
Three.
PDF.
Yeah, what is that the neighborhood hospital, which I think is the second page. If you want to just, can you talk about that just generally, or?
Yeah, as we just interrupt, I'm sorry, let me just interrupt for a second. I just want to clear that the architectural renderings are on, I'm trying to figure out, because of the way they printed out, Peter, whether
Okay.
we call this 3 pages or whether we call this 9 photographs. But it's a 3-page document. It has 9 different depictions, if you will. And it is known as Exhibit A4. Thank you.
So as was discussed in the summary of the site, you can see on the picture, if we focus our attention on the top left corner, there is the overhang for the patient drop-off on the right side of that view, of that rendered view. That's as if you were standing in the vicinity of the driveway of Route 100 that comes in, looking at the building from the southeast looking northwest. And we can also see the emergency drop-off on the left side, kind of towards the background of that same image for the ambulance drop-off. What's off screen there on that view is the parking lot to the right. Going down, one image is a view of the small office or the small hospital from the northeast corner looking downward, showing the bump out in that building is actually an MRI center that will supplement the operations of the hospital. And we have some pictorial representations of the look that we're going for with the aesthetic of the building in the top right corner with the different materials. That's the nature of these exhibits. And I would say they accurately represent the design intent. And as mentioned, we're still working with the township professionals to sort out the details, but this gives an idea of what this building will look like in this neighborhood.
And I think with that, that concludes our testimony. I think we had the 4 exhibits. We'd move for their admission at this time.
They're admitted. Would this be a good time for the board to ask any question of your witnesses? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Members of the board? Just out of curiosity, I would assume that the medical office building hours would be normal doctor office hours. That part of the complex wouldn't be 24/7.
Denise, is that a question?
That's correct. There may be some late night office visits, but it's intended to be medical office building with, normal operating hours.
Okay, that was the only question. Thank you.
Peter, I would like to identify the township exhibits pretty quickly for the record. I believe they were supplied to the court reporter in advance. So I would ask the court reporter to make both sets bound to the transcript. Township exhibits quickly are Township Exhibit 1, is the conditional use application dated November 12, 2021. Township Exhibit 2 is the legal notice for the conditional use hearing published in East Penn Press on January 5 and January 13, 2022. Township 3, certification of property posted.
It says the 12th, not the 13th. I want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself. Thank you. So Township 2 is dated January 5 and January 12, 2022. Township 3 is the certification of property posting by Nate Jones dated January 7, 2022. Township 4 is the certification of mailing by Carl Best dated January 7, 2022. Township 5 memorandum from Nate Jones. To Lower Township Planning Commission dated November 11, 2021. Exhibit 6, memorandum of Carl Best, zoning officer. To the Lower Mukunji Township Planning Commission dated November 24, 2021. Township 7, letter from Brian McAdams, CKS Engineers, to Nate Jones dated December 7, 2021. Township 8, letter from Andreas Heinrich, traffic engineer with Heinrich and Klein, Brian McAdam dated December 6, 2021. And finally, this Township Exhibit 9 is the Planning Commission recommendation dated December 20, 2021. I move my exhibits. Peter, any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. So they're accepted. So both sets of exhibits are in evidence. If the board has no questions of either Attorney Lair or of the two witnesses, this would be a good time to take public comment.
So and if you have public comment, please just come up to the podium and identify yourself. We sign in for this like normal?
Right.
Yeah.
And because, ma'am, we're on Zoom,
Yes.
you really have to talk like right into your mic in order to be heard everywhere. Thank you.
I'm a teacher, so I can
Yeah.
make sure I radiate my voice.
You can project.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. It's all good. I can begin?
Please.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Kara, and our residence directly borders the old Weiss property. My comments tonight are more kind of directed for that medical office in the back, since that's the one that's going to mostly impact our neighborhood. We know that the commercial zoning is for up to 3 stories, so we're certainly not questioning that aspect. However, with that change from the original 2 stories to the 3 stories, it has raised some concerns, which we just want to address on the record. Our biggest concern, and that of our neighbors as well, is that being that office will be close to the residential area, and the new height and the deterioration of the buffer, which I know you're aware of, we think it's really important to discuss the windows on the north side of the property, the ones facing the residence. We would love if it could be approved that those windows are somehow 2-way fogged, so that there's not visible in, through, and out. Our whole development has, young children who are in our backyards, our pool regularly. And with the lack of that barrier and the trees, the new 3-story height, and the proximity to our residents, without 2-way fogging, visitors and employees would be able to see into our backyard. And obviously, we're very uncomfortable with that. We would also assume that visitors to that medical office would also like the privacy of knowing that residents can't see into, their medical room as well. We think that's a fair recommendation considering the 3-story height, the deterioration of the landscape barrier, and the proximity. So, we were just curious if that has been considered, or if that could be considered.
Can I just stop you for just 1 second?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure the medical office building isn't part of the conditional use. Is that correct? Is it the?
No, it's both,
Okay,
but
okay. Because normally what you're discussing there, very valid, would happen during land development,
Okay,
the next phase.
okay,
It's kind of a hard thing to understand.
yeah,
Trust me, it's been a long time and I don't understand it, but this is just saying that the use that they're proposing
sure.
is allowable in that area. It doesn't really address architecture or the windows or a lot of that stuff. That's part of the land development, which is the next phase. But putting it on the record is good so that we have that to work with as we get to the next phase.
Okay, so that's okay. I can kind of continue just to
Absolutely.
put it out there, food for thought, and okay,
ma'am, just while we're on that
sure.
one theme, I think, Nate, you know about this issue and there's been some discussion about it. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been brought to our attention during the planning commission review process. And it is actually staff who has spoken with the neighbors with respect to this. We've reached out to the applicants on several occasions, noting that the proximity of the new medical office building and the height is a concern to the abutting residents. That's how we've arrived at a point where we have a strong level of comfort in the recommendation of the buffer that we now have, as well as the privacy film or fogging or whatever occurs on the north side of the medical office building. Those have been taken care of at the planning commission level, and staff is recommending to the board for consideration.
How will privacy be maintained?
My understanding is that a 2-way film or fog is going to be used. Our recommendation is that be reviewed at the time of building permit application with the architecturals for the structure. That's when our code officials would look at it. And that would provide privacy for the residents as well as patients and doctors.
So I just wanted you to know that we're aware of your issue and it's being addressed in land development. as President Higgins indicated. And in that respect, what he described is exactly accurate. Picture this is just sort of the car. It's not painted. There's nothing inside yet, but it goes through the assembly line, and when it comes out, it's beautiful. And that's what Land Development is all about.
Perfect.
So I would urge you to follow along.
Yep.
It's all on the website. And if you have additional comments, most surely get them into Mr. Jones and frankly, to Mr. Lair. And I'm sure your concerns will be addressed.
So, okay, so at this point, would it be best then, just so I understand, because again, it is all a little confusing. Should I save, I did have a couple other comments. Should I save those for a later time or get those out there?
You're more than welcome to do it now. We just want to make sure that you know that we're addressing
Okay,
some of the things that you're mentioning already, so you don't think it's.
okay.
first time
Yeah, I
we're
mean, if
hearing
it's
it or-
fine, I'd love, it's nothing.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue.
Please don't construe anything I'm doing or President or Mr. Jones is trying to speed you along. Take your time, say what you need to say. Really, we appreciate your public comment.
Sounds good. Thank you. The next topic is just the lighting, and we know that there have been, as was mentioned, advances with it being dark sky compliant. Again, with those changes from the 2-story to 3-story, and I think originally the building was proposed to be facing Route 100. It's now, the front of that building is now perpendicular to Route 100. So we were just curious, again, food for thought. If any considerations for lighting have been considered on the front of the medical office building, since that will be kind of radiating into residents. For example, if there's going to be a lit up business sign on the front of that building, that's going to be kind of radiating into 2nd-story bedrooms. So could it be dimmed at a certain time of night that it's not as bright? Just any, considerations for that lighting with the new height. Landscaping, basically, I think we just kind of basically like to applaud your efforts in enhancing that, because we've lived there for a while and unfortunately we've seen it deteriorate. And there's honestly been some major issues, including trespassing teenagers and adults for that matter, drug use, and even the setting off of fireworks. So we're definitely looking forward to an improved buffer that follows the zoning recommendations and is maintained, because that was an issue as well. It was not maintained. And lastly, somebody else on the board already asked one of my questions, which was, again, with all of the changes, I just wanted to get out there and make sure that that back building was not, 24/7, that it was going to be kind of more of a Monday through Friday doctor office hour type building. And those are really all of my comments. And again, as a direct neighbor, we certainly appreciate your consideration of our concerns.
Ma'am, if you did this already, I apologize. Could
No
you
worries.
just clearly state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Name is Kara Bellis and address is 6338 Larch Circle, Mukunji, 18062.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question, not for
Yeah.
you, Kara, just.
Oh, okay.
The dimming or the filming of the windows. I would think if I'm a resident, one of my concerns would be at night, if, let's say it's this time of year, obviously it gets dark very early. Inside the building, if the lights are on, it can be much easier to see in. Does that double filming help to eliminate that? Like, I know that my windows in my kitchen are tinted, and I know that you can't see in during the day whatsoever. But when it gets nighttime and the lights are on inside and it's dark outside, you can see in from my neighbor's house. Does this process or whatever we're talking about here help to eliminate that?
Well, and Denise might be able to address that. I don't think the expectation it would be opaque, meaning you couldn't see that there's a lighted and there might be figures there, but it's film, right? You wouldn't be able to, at least the proposal would be that you would not be able to actually see that, right?
That's correct, Peter. The film is, of course, if there's a light on inside, you'll be able to see a light through the film, but you won't be able to distinguish things inside the building.
You'd see a silhouette.
You'd still see a silhouette, right?
Okay, yeah, that's my main concern. We used to talk about whether our neighbors could see, and we had no blinds, we had no anything, because it was just tinted. And I know at night you can see through easier. You can't see through like if it was just a window, but I think that would be a concern of mine if we were looking at neighbors being so close and then having to watch, what's going on in the exam rooms or offices.
And your
it's the
line of sight,
modern
you'd also have to
equivalent.
get through the landscaping screen
Right.
too.
Right. Okay.
It's the modern equivalent of frosted glass.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. President, perhaps any
Yeah,
other public
next,
comment?
Anybody else public comment? Please, sir, come up. Just state your name and address for the record.
Thanks.
My name is Dan Tigas. I'm a resident of 6335 Larch Circle, Mukunji 18062. And I've been at these planning meetings when they went from the farm to Weiss's. And you guys have done a great job. Just a fantastic job. I can tell you, working with Ron Beitler and the rest of the team here, we've come a long way and stayed together, and I expect that to continue. I just want to thank you for that. The serious issues, the privacy, of course, are there. We've enjoyed our time in that cul-de-sac. These girls are ladies are my neighbors. And 2 years ago, we had a young lady stop by, 4 years old when she left. And 18 years later, she came in at 24. And she remembers how well the neighborhood was, how she loved it. She came to visit 20 years later. We got to keep that going. We're turning it over to the younger people. I have not very much to say, except that the real issue that we had all the way through this, or not the real issue, one issue was always getting people from the highway into our backyards. And that is the necessity of the fence and a few things that maybe are not needed anymore, but that was our real issue, was to keep ourselves from being subject to people wandering. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Mr. Hartman, do you have any comment?
No, I guess the only comment I'd made earlier and is just the question of, with the number of medical services, medical buildings we have in the area, are we confident that there's going to be good use of this facility in the future? Have they done surveys in terms of, occupancy? What is the proposed occupancy of this community hospital? Do we have any ideas?
Peter, I would assume you've got your experts up here that can answer that question better than any of us, so take it on.
Yeah, Denise, if you want to talk about it, I think that generally is what's the proposed uses within the community hospital or the neighborhood hospital. As we said, it's ER. It's I think I've identified the number of emergency beds, inpatient beds. As I said, it's a neighborhood hospital. It's intended to, not be, an area where people are from various specialties are leasing out spaces for other, ancillary uses. It's really going to be designed. That's just the hospital. The MOB, I don't know if you want to talk at that.
Sure. The neighborhood hospital, as Peter said earlier, consists of 10 inpatient beds for short-term stay and 11 emergency exam rooms. It does have an imaging component as part of the hospital. So it is truly a small format hospital, as Peter indicated earlier. The MOB, again, is for general physician practices to be determined, and for your general doctor visits.
Yeah, and if I'll just expand on that, the proximity from the hospital to the medical office building is in line with other hospital settings that you see, but this will be on a smaller scale. I mean, obviously people are familiar with the I-78 Cedar Crest campus of Lehigh Valley Health Network, which this is not. But if you're familiar with that, you have a large scale hospital on one side of Cedar Crest, and then you have a series of office buildings on the opposite side, most of which are medically oriented, but there are other professional. That's not what's being proposed here. So I don't know that I can address exactly and specifically your question, Mr. Hartman, in terms of occupancy, other than to say.
Let me try it a different way. Mr. Hartman, did that answer your question?
Well, not, yeah, I don't know. I guess you don't know, of the 10 beds, do you anticipate it to be 80, 90%? And more importantly, I guess what came to me now is what about trauma? I live right across the street from the proposed community hospital. Are there going to be ambulances 24/7 in and out, emergency room? What is anticipated in terms of the trauma center? Or,
Sir, before you answer, Mr. Hartman, I think I might have missed your address. Well, could you just state your address for the record?
oh, I'm sorry. It's Jeffrey Hartman, 212 West Main Street, Mukunji, 18062.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Denise, would you like to, I think maybe the trauma and then the number of ambulance visits?
Sure. Yeah, the hospital will be classified as a trauma level 4, which is a hospital that the sole purpose is to evaluate, stabilize, and transport if necessary, but they're licensed to treat for trauma level 4 injuries. Should a patient admitted be evaluated, stabilized, and need transport out, there would be an ambulance that would transport out. We estimate 1 to 2 ambulances would go out of the facility a day.
Would it be safe to say, and just to try to, I know what Mr. Hartman's kind of getting at here. If someone was being transported for a trauma, this is not the first choice of most places. They're not bringing them here first. They may walk in with a trauma and be then transported out, but the likelihood of someone incurring a trauma being transported by ambulance to this hospital would be relatively low.
You're correct. We work closely with the local EMS. They will understand the capabilities of the hospital and where to take patients that are in need of a higher level of trauma care.
Very good. Thank you. That stated my issue very well. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Hartman. I appreciate your comment. Unless there's any other public comment or questions of the applicant, we can close the hearing.
I actually have one more comment.
Sure.
And it kind of goes to what Mr. Hartman said, and not that we're looking at the viability of how many medical practices or hospitals there are. That's not our business. It's not really what we do. My curiosity is, by establishing a community hospital, do you see that as something that offsets a number of urgent care facilities or things of that nature, a hospital of this scope and size?
I would say that this hospital is completely different than an urgent care. People will still go to an urgent care for that minor cold,
Mhm.
cough. The neighborhood hospital is meant to treat emergent issues, broken arms. We have the imaging suite. If you're, in a seizure or something, cut your hand, those extreme emergencies. So I see it as a different level of care.
Okay. I think
Specialized.
I think you see more and more people who still treat the ER as their primary care physician, and that's what I'm wondering is, it's 24 hours. So now you're going to get more. And does that put the other types of businesses at risk? But like I said, it's not our business. That's more curiosity on my part. Thank you.
Mr. President, this concludes the hearing. The record is now closed, except for the obligation of the Board of Commissioners to discuss, deliberate, decide, President before the night. And session. Are inclined to vote. Sorry, thank you. In front of you, if you are inclined to vote, is a motion that was prepared based on Mr. Jones's review of the Planning Commission recommendation and the conditions as crafted by the Solicitor's Office, all of which Peter would be reviewed with you before a decision is released. But is there a motion tonight, or is this something you would like to table?
Can Can I make the motion? I don't even know how that works.
Well, don't we have to get back into the meeting first?
Do we have to adjourn? We can do right.
No, we can do it at the end of the hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, on the record.
Then do I have a motion to approve the conditional use application for NH Mukunji PA -1 capital U capital T LLC?
So moved, with the condition that, okay, are these all the conditions that the planning commission had?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Let me just explain. So what you have in front of you is the planning commission recommendation. That's an exhibit. And these are not word for word because many of the planning commission recommendations really spoke to land development. So what we tried to do here, and again, we don't need to go over the conditions tonight. We can wait and issue them at the decision. But you can take a vote, yes or no, and then authorize me to write a decision and the conditions will be there. That might be what you're thinking of because you will be seeing the decision and voting on the decision separately. Okay. So is there a motion simply to grant the conditional use of NH Mukunji PA 1 UT LLC to authorize a neighbor hospital and a medical office building at the property located at 3369 PA 100?
So
Mukunji,
moved.
PA.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other commissioner questions? Any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
Okay, so the only thing left is for the solicitor's office to prepare a decision. And Peter, I'll be reviewing the conditions with you
Okay,
before that is published. But of course, the final say on everything is the Board of Commissioners. So that's where we are.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good presentation. Thank you so much.
Mr. Solicitor, if the public wanted to see a copy of the conditions, they can see, they wait for the written decision or can they see them ahead of time?
I would encourage them to review the Planning Commission Exhibit 7, which is on the website.
Okay.
And as soon as we, vote on the decision itself with the conditions, that of course will be published
Right.
to the website.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So that concludes the conditional use hearings for tonight. And Mr. President, I think we can reconvene the regular meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solicitor. Moving on to item 6.3, consideration of sanctuary at Halfsville 2022 animal control contract.
Thank you. You'll see before you this evening for your consideration. This is our annual agreement with the sanctuary at Halfsville to provide services, various services for stray cats, feral cats, and dogs running at large. This does include a fee per each type of animal.
Thank you. Mr. Township Manager, do I have a
Move to approve.
motion to approve? We have a motion to approve. Second, any commissioner questions? Any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Item 7, public comment on non-agenda topics. Is there any public comment on non-agenda topics? Anything from the virtual world? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call, no, there's no vote. What am I saying? Okay, moving on. Item 8, communications, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. We have the following two items of communication this evening. Mr. Travis Coker, a statement of interest for the Public Safety Committee. Mr. Frank Diamore, a statement of interest for the Zoning Hearing Board.
Thank you very much. Item 9, appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. There are none this evening. Item 10, approval of meeting minutes. We have several to approve. I do believe we did get a legal opinion that they can be voted on even if you were not in attendance, correct?
Move to approve the December 2nd, 2021 minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comment? Public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 10.2, December 16th, 2021 minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner comment? Public comment? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? 10.3, January 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
And a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comment? Any public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's have it. Thank you very much. 11.1, bill list.
Thank you. We have the following for your consideration this evening. The general fund, $240,994.59. The sewer fund, $668,070.11. The capital projects fund, $238,064.02. The payroll, $150,418.94. The developer escrow, $121,298.13, for a total of all funds, $1,418,845.79.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please pay our bills. And as always, the full bill list is available on the township website if you are so inclined to review. Moving on, item 12, departmental matters. 12.1, Mr. McAdam, engineering.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not a whole lot to announce tonight, other than the sanitary sewer slip lining contract is officially finished. We came in under budget slightly. I'm scrambling to find out how much. I forget, I apologize, but we are done. We've started working with the township staff, preparing the various projects for bid for this year, public works, road program stuff, the upcoming sewer projects. We will have a couple items to present at the workshop for a couple of public works type projects that will be out to bid shortly.
Thank you. Any questions for the engineer? Okay, moving on. 12.2, planning, Mr. Jones.
Yes, Mr. President, I have one resolution for the board this evening. It is for reduction in financial security for secured improvements at the Mountain View Estates subdivision. The original security for the entirety of the project is just over $1.5 million. Following inspections and endorsement by the township engineer, CKS, we have a reduction of $216,337.81.
Move to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for resolution 2022-04 for the security release for Mountain View Estates. Any commissioner comment? Any public comment? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything further, Mr. Jones?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Any questions for the planning director? Okay, moving on. 12.3, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In front of you this evening is Resolution 2022-05, which is an authorization to condemn and acquire the Dorney properties.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
I just do want to just explain exactly what we're doing here, just so it's abundantly clear. This resolution authorizes the condemnation and acquisition of certain land within the township of Lower Mukunji, Lehigh County, for the purpose of establishing public parkland and preserving open space, as shown on the official map of Lower Mukunji Township. It involves the following properties that are privately owned. These are lands to be acquired for park. And they are 2525 Lower Mukunji Road, Emmaus. Tax identification 54844920670. 2700 Lower Mukunji Road, Emmaus. Tax parcel 548458530739. And finally, 2740 Lower Mukunji Road, tax parcel 54846778238. And then there are two properties being acquired for Greenway open space according to the official map. And they are 2250 Riverbend, Allentown, PA, tax parcel 548459023659. And finally, 2300 Riverbend Road, tax parcel 54846900256. Finally, and lastly, attached to your resolution is a map, Exhibit A. And that map shows those tax parcels with the tax parcel ID. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-05, authorizing the condemnation and acquisition of the Dorney properties?
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any commissioner comment or questions? Any public comment or questions?
Do we have anybody online? It doesn't look like we have anybody online for this particular resolution, Mr. President.
Okay, then hearing and seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Solicitor?
Nothing this evening, other than to thank Commissioner Robert for Robert's rules, because you were right with regard to approval of minutes. So I took that into you learn something every day. Thank you.
Uncle Henry.
Okay, 12.4, Mr. Beidle.
Thank you. I just have one item this evening for your consideration with the creation of the fund at the First Keystone Community Bank that will hold the proceeds from the issuance of the 2022 banknote for open space. It was necessary that we designate signatories. These signatories are, as defined in the resolution, as we would at our normal bank accounts. We just needed to do this separate from our normal accounts that we approved at the reorg meeting.
Okay. Then we have Resolution 2022-06, authorizing check signatories for accounts at First Keystone Community Bank.
Move to approve.
Second. You have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comment or questions? Any public comment or questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
I would respectfully request an executive session for labor and personnel, if I can, this evening after this meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Item 13, committee reports. No committees have met. There is a workshop on Monday evening, the 24th, 6 p.m. 6 p.m.
That's this month.
That would be this Monday, correct. Okay, other business, any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Okay, any Board of Commissioner reports? Any public comment on anything at all? Okay, as requested by the Township Manager, we will be having an executive session following this meeting to discuss labor issues. With that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.